All right. Thank you all for joining us for our alumni panel today on April the 6th. This will be a very informative meeting as we have some alumni with various backgrounds here to share information about their experience at the University of Michigan, about their careers, and hopefully they can provide some awesome advice on how you can proceed academically and pursuing your career in the future. So we will start off with each panelist introducing themselves. And so let's go in alphabetical order. We can start with Amanda first.
Hi, everybody. My name is Amanda Coon. I am a tax manager here at Plante Moran. I'm a CPA. I got my BBA and MSA both from UM-Flint. I graduated with my BBA in 14, my MSA in 15, and I've been here at Plante Moran since I interned with them back in 13.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. Jim, can we have you introduce yourself next?
Sure. My name is Jim Carney. I work at ChoiceOne Bank over in Lapeer. I got my MBA from UM-Flint back in 2002. Went to another institution for my undergrad, and that was 10 years before that. Been in the banking industry for about 23 years now.
Thank you. Next, can we have Mike introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name is Mike Strader. I am a retirement plan advisor at Huntington Bank in downtown Flint. I graduated from U of M with my bachelor's degree in business administration back in 2000. I've been working at Huntington since it was first merit back in 2014. Prior to that, worked for the municipal employees retirement system with the administration of municipal retirement plans. So that's what I have been doing for the last 16 years. So I spent some other time in retail banking and as well too prior to that.
Thank you for sharing that. So since we've all have the common denominator of being a part of the University of Michigan family, can you share with us, I guess, your academic experience at the university, favorite classes, and how some of those courses help you in your career journey? And we can do a round robin here.
I'll go ahead and go first. I really enjoyed my MBA classes. I had already been in the banking career for, it probably only been about 3 or 4 years, and decided to go back. As I mentioned before, had been out of school for 10 years. Really was very important for my career. I did make a move shortly after getting my MBA, and they flat out said, it's because you had your MBA is why we hired you. So that's what set me apart from other people in my profession. And again, really enjoyed the MBA because really everything was completely business focused, and being a commercial lender, all the information I can have about companies really benefited me and again, helped me get another job, and also made me better at the job I was doing. So really nothing but great things to say about the MBA program.
I guess I can go next. My favorite classes, truthfully, were the ones that were taught by Professor Lawrence. He tends to take on all of the human relations type. I think my favorite class was his human relations, and I think it was behavioral and organizations, because even though most people think that accounting is this big math world that we live in, where all I'm ever doing is tax and I'm doing this massive amounts of complicated math and things like that, it's really a generalization that's very, very much wrong, because 99% of my job is dealing with other human beings. And Dr. Lawrence's class has always helped with that. He also teaches a negotiations class that's really good. I think that one I took in my master's, but they're all really helpful because it's all about communicating with other human beings and figuring out a way to get what you need to progress on whatever project you're working on. Because even though the end product that I create is a tax return. The thing is that I'm always working with other humans, and they're always my biggest challenge. So learning how to deal with and communicate with other people is probably the most helpful thing that you'll learn in school.
Yeah, and for me, one of my favorite classes, and I also just like the flexibility that it had, because I was working full-time or part full-time while I was attending class. So just being able to work around things with that, and probably one of my favorite classes was I'm going to draw a blank on the name on it, but it was an intro to banking class, for lack of a better term, and it was taught by Dr. Perry, which I loved that class and the way that he was able to communicate things, and just a wealth of knowledge. So that was probably one of my favorite classes.
Thank you all for sharing. If a student was interested in going into your career field, what advice could you give them?
I'll go ahead and start. So for me, as a retirement plan advisor, I work with businesses on the administration of their 401k plan, the investment lineup, the investment reviews, fiduciary governance on what they have to do for the appropriate administration of the plan, with ERISA law and the Department of Labor. My biggest thing is that, one, being able to have that sense of detail and be able to review and make the recommendations, whether it's on the investment side or a plan design side of things. Definitely go out and get a certification if you work for an organization that'll pay for that for you, or I encourage you to go out and just do it yourself. If not, a lot of companies will have some employee reimbursement type things for you, education reimbursements there. But I have my Certified Retirement Services Professional designation, my Accredited Investment Fiduciary designation, Certified Plan Fiduciary Administration, as well as a Certified Retirement Plan Professional. So it holds a lot of water. There's a lot of companies that are out there that do 401k advising, where they might spend the majority of their time on individual accounts, and they only do a handful of ERISA 401k type accounts. So get into that background, get into that knowledge, and try to find a place that that is a focus of theirs, where it's not a onesie twosie kind of a thing, but there's a dedicated model to that retirement plan advisory firm. So that would be my advice.
Mike, I want to follow up with you for that certification piece. Now, did you go to another university to receive those certifications? Was it an outside agency? Can you highlight that a little bit?
Yeah, so I did. I got my Certified Retirement Services Professional designation and my Certified Plan Professional designation from Cannon Institute, which is a widely known banking educational company, outside vendor that's out there. I also received my Accredited Investment Fiduciary designation through a company called FI 360, which is a well-known advisory fiduciary firm within the retirement plan field.
Thank you for shedding light on that. Amanda, would you like to add?
Yeah, I mean, I would also recommend doing a little bit of research on the back end as far as what kind of company you want to work for. At Plante, we have a really, really strong culture here. And it's one of the things that we tend to highlight out on our website, everything that we're connected with. If you go out to the Plante Moran website, you're going to find out about the organizations that we contribute to, that we volunteer at. You will find out about a lot of our, what it's like to work as an employee here. And then, if you can look at the kind of firm that you want to work for, the firm, the corporation, whatever it is, look them up and do some research, because you'll find out a lot just by looking up their background and checking out their website and stuff like that. And it comes in really handy when you start interviewing, because if you go into an interview and you haven't looked up the details on this organization that you want to work with or work for, those people that are interviewing you are going to fully expect that you've done a little bit of research and that you come into that interview with some kind of base knowledge. What do you know about, if it is with a professional services firm, they're going to ask you specific questions about like where you're looking to end up at when you go into these interviews, and all that information that you can gather from those websites is really important.
Can you highlight any information about your certifications that someone who may be interested in being a CPA, that process?
I have to get my license through the state of Michigan, or if I were to move to a different state, I'd have to be certified in that state to work. So getting the CPA means that you have to pass all 4 sections of the Certified Public Accountants exam. There's 4 sections. They break it out into, each covers a different aspect of our industry. And then you have to pass all 4 sections within a limited time frame. You also have to take there's 150 total credits in order to qualify for the exam. A lot of them are very specific to the industry, and you can easily look them all up on the NASBA site, which is like the National Accounting Standards Board, and they'll list out exactly what you need. Usually when we are looking at interns and starting to hire for our intern process, we go through that with them and show them, hey, FYI, it's not just 120. Basically, you can get a master's. You don't have to. It's easier when you have the master's because it automatically gets you to that 150. But you've got to basically take all those credits, qualify to take the exam, pass the exam within a certain time frame, and then you also have to have an amount of work. I think it was 2,000 hours that I had to put in before I could apply for my license. And then throughout my license, I also have to continue to get educational requirements that go along with that, the CPE, which when you're looking at jobs and industries, especially if you're going into something where you have to be licensed, you want to look at firms that are going to help you out with that. So my firm, they paid for Becker. Becker is a CPA prep course. In general, it costs about $4,000 for the course. And so my firm just paid for it so that I would pass the exam. And that's really helpful because especially when you're coming out of college and you're like, how do I pay for this exam that's extremely hard to take, very expensive on the other hand. I mean, each section was, I want to say like $150. So, and if you don't pass them, then you've got to pay to retake them and all that kind of stuff. So you really want a firm or some kind of organization that's going to help you with those costs, and they're going to support you through the process, which is, getting through whatever testing you have to get through, prepping you for it. And then my firm also paid for, if I passed the exam within a year of starting with the firm, then I think it was a $6,000 bonus. And if it was within 2 years, it was a $1,500. So those kinds of things really pay off in the end. So even though my licensing it was very complex and very difficult, in the end, now that I'm a CPA, I can go work anywhere. Like the headhunters now, I get probably 6 to 10 invites to apply for some kind of a job a day on LinkedIn. And so the CPA has really made a huge difference in where I can work if I didn't want to stay where I'm at.
Thank you for sharing that. Jim, would you like to add, if a student was interested in joining the banking world, what advice would you give?
Sure. Well, my advice is going to be pretty easy compared to the other 2 panelists. Commercial banking doesn't really have any certifications or anything like that you need to get, just a general business accounting background. Really, the first step would be a credit analyst. And I can tell you, just as a general statement, credit analysts are in demand right now. Even if you're just coming out of school, I would check with as many different banks as you can and really try to get in there. Of course, most banks are going to look for somebody first with experience, but again, there appears to be a shortage of credit analysts. So, my guess would be if you looked around, you could probably find a job. I really like the comments that Amanda made about interpersonal skills too. A credit analyst is largely taking a look at financial statements and analyzing them and helping prepare credit authorizations for commercial loans. You know, you got to have the interpersonal skills too. You've got to be able to interact with the commercial lenders. I was fortunate enough a long time ago when I was the credit analyst, I got to go out on loan closings and close loans by myself, get to know clients, speak to clients on a daily basis. So it's not just crunching numbers nonstop. So again, I would, if I were you, I would take a look at as many banks as you can. You know, it'd be nice to understand some of the culture. Hopefully you might have some multiple offers, that type of stuff, but really just get in there, get some experience. I've worked for about 4 different banks in my 20+ year career. So not a huge number, but enough to know that it's more or less the same everywhere at each bank. So it's generally transferable. Whatever financial institution you'd end up in is going to show you how to use their systems and how to spread financial statements and do stuff like that. And everybody's just a little bit different. But basically, at the end of the day, it's cash flow, collateral analysis, and that type of stuff. So once you kind of get into it, you can, you know, should be able to go anywhere after that point, or continue on with your career if you think you want to become a commercial loan officer, which a lot of credit analysts do. That's what I wanted to do right from the get-go. I said, hey, I will be a credit analyst to start off with, but I do want to become a commercial lender. So give that some thought, and you know, I would be upfront with them during the interview process that, hey, you know, at some point you would like to move on, because basically every commercial lender started off as a credit analyst.
Thank you for bringing up the entry-level roles and some of those skills that students want to acquire. So here at the university, we're pushing this career development requirement for students to earn points and acquire skills outside of the academic environment. So the National Association of Colleges and Employers states that students should graduate with, you know, these transferable skills of problem solving, time management, you know, oral and written communication, global competency, teamwork, leadership. There's a couple more in there as well. Can you, I guess, share with the students, if they were to consider, you know, more of an entry-level role with your organizations, what are some of the top skills they want to acquire academically that they can transfer over into these roles? And if you could, highlight a couple of different job titles that they want to be looking at.
I can take this one first if you want. Problem solving is the #1 skill that I'm looking for. So when you come in and say you were to start as an intern with us, or even as a full-time staff, we're going to give you basic routine tasks to start with. They're going to get a little more complex as you go through. But what we're really looking for is, are you capable of problem solving? Can you take an issue, take it apart, and figure out, okay, what can I tackle on my own? What can I figure out? What can I, you know, how can I find a way to get to some kind of a solution? And the students that come to me and are interning, and they come to me and they, you know, I give them a problem, I send them on their way, say, go, you know, here, work on this, come back to me when you have some questions. The ones that complete the task and it's a hot mess, and they don't come to me with questions, they don't come to me with any possible solutions to the problem, and they just hand me a package, are the ones that I'm probably not going to give them a whole lot of notes. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time trying to develop them, because they didn't put in the effort to really attempt to problem solve. They didn't give me a potential solution to anything. Honestly, I'd much rather that you give me a completely wrong answer that you at least came up with and tried to research and make the attempt to give me a solution, than for you to just not even try at all, or for you to, you know, assume that you're doing it all really completely right and not try to work through the problem. So problem solving to me is the #1 skill that students need to come out of college with.
Thank you. Mike, would you chime in, please?
Yeah, that's definitely a top one in my industry as well too. But I would also say it's you know, get creative. Be personable, because this is, you're dealing with people's retirement, and you want to be able to have that communication skill to where they're trusting you with most likely outside of, their house, depending on their age, their largest potential asset that they have, which is, very important to them. So just being able to be very personable and very understanding, and being able to take some of the complexities of investing and saving for retirement and making it very simple for the average person to understand, because the majority of the people that I go out and see, they don't have a lot of investment knowledge or education when it comes to that. It's not what they went to school for. That's not what they do on a regular basis. So just being able to problem solve, again, come with recommendations, and be very personable is very important in this business.
Jim, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Yeah, a lot of it, especially the credit analyst position, is time management. You're going to get bombarded. You're going to have more work than you can get done in a normal day. But really just have to kind of get through it. There is some seasonality to commercial lending. So normally if it's bad for a while, hopefully it won't be that way forever. But again, you want to keep up the communication. I've had some credit analysts who don't get back with me for weeks on end, and that's not good. Or I send an email asking for an update, don't hear anything. That's not good. Sometimes some places I've been at, it's, well, I'm on the credit side, the credit analysis, and you're commercial, and and it's kind of adversarial, and it should not be that way. Really what we're trying to do is find solutions for our clients, and we're all part of a team together. So it's very important to do that. But I also want to point out, though, even though the credit analyst is an entry-level position, your name could be going all the way up to the board of directors on your credit presentation. So the work has to reflect that. And pretty early on, you can tell somebody who's really spent the time on it, really dug deep into it and done that. And us lenders realize that. And, we'll actually speak very highly of those credit analysts who do that. So even though it's an entry-level position, the work you do is, in theory, going way up the ladder. So it's very important that it's correct.
Thank you all for sharing that. As I scroll through our list of attendees, I've noticed that we have some of our upper-level students here. A couple of them are approaching graduation. And right now, what I've noticed with COVID, the playing field for applying for entry-level jobs has been leveled. Everything's online, it's remote. Right now we're in Flint, but we could be competing for a job for somebody in California with the same skill set or even have more skills. Can you highlight, your recruiting process, what students should be doing to make themselves more marketable or branding themselves to qualify for some of these roles within your organizations?
I'll go ahead and go. With COVID and of course these online meetings, that kind of presents a bit of a daunting task, right? I mean, because you're not out mingling with people, get a chance to kind of get your name out there other than just in an electronic format. So I somewhat feel for you regarding that, but it also, like kind of what you said, Antonio, maybe levels the playing field a little bit, whereby if you're able to move somewhere else or whatever, maybe that allows you to get a position because, you don't run into each other all the time and be able to do that. So, but, having said that, to the degree it's possible, I would try to leverage whatever contacts you have. One of my favorite sayings has always been, it's who you know. And, if you did a summer internship or did something like that, or let's just say you work with a company, maybe you go back to them and say, hey, who do you bank with? And just use that as a way to kind of get some type of introduction and do that. So, but, be prepared for the online. You're most likely going to have an online interview. So make sure that you understand how all that works and, kind of present yourself the best way possible online. I'm sure, unfortunately, we've all kind of had to do that over the last year or so. Maybe that means practicing an interview online with one of your friends or something like that. Make sure the technology is correct and understand that, and just be prepared for that type of format going forward.
Yeah, and Tony, I'll go next. If you really know exactly what you want to do and you're seeking that position out, I reach out to all your contacts and find a mentor. I would say that's one of the things that I hear a lot from extremely successful people is they found a mentor that they trusted, that has created a successful career, and use that person as a guide as well too. So I would say, and that's one thing I wish someone would have told me when I was in school, which it can only help, but I would definitely encourage you to find a mentor in the field that you want to go into and really focus on, and utilize that resource as well too. Because if they've been in the business for a while, they most likely have contacts, and having that mentor could get you into contact with with some other key people in the field.
If you don't have a LinkedIn yet, you should have one by the end of the day. I cannot vocalize this strongly enough. The other thing that I tend to get up on my soapbox about is interning, because it's the easiest way to get some experience out there. But I mean, really, there's almost no excuse for you not to have a LinkedIn. And I mean, seriously, how hard is it to go out there and, I mean, you can go be friends with me. Look me up on LinkedIn, and I mean, really, I would go through and make sure that you are connected to all of us, and not just us. Go find people that are in your industry, send them requests. The thing is that in the professional field, most of us have some kind of practice development or something that's continuously trying to earn us a way to expand our own businesses. So we have, we're always trying to grow our network. Most people aren't going to tell you no, that they don't want you as a contact out on LinkedIn. So find those people in your industry, connect with them, and have someone, like Mike was saying, with like someone that can mentor you, that will look over your profile, look over your interviews, all those kinds of things, and give you the tips that you need to kind of buff it up and make it that shiny new thing that's really going to stand out. And when it comes to, interviewing online, we recently just hired an admin here. She had 2 phone interviews, 3 virtual interviews, all on different days, all with different people. And every single time she had to come up with new questions to ask, had to have different stories to tell. I would go into every single interview with 3 stories, practice the crap out of them, get them so that they're all fun and that they make you interesting. And they don't have to be well, I learned this from school. They really should be things that are about your life that make you a little bit different and make you genuine. Don't give me the generic tales that I've heard a million times. I want something that really makes you interesting. And it doesn't necessarily have to be strictly like work, school related. It can be from your personal life. Anything that can trigger that interpersonal connection and makes me think that I wouldn't mind spending 12 hours in the same room with you. Because in all reality, that's how I make my determination when I come out of an interview. I think to myself, could I spend a week in an audit room with someone? And if the answer is no, then the likelihood is that the interview didn't go very well. So you really want to bring out those interpersonal skills. The ability to even make eye contact on Zoom is really hard, and it's something that you should practice.
Thank you all again. Students, key word that I got from those responses is networking, networking, networking. Also, if you want to practice your interviewing skills, please do not forget about Big Interview. You can record yourself in the online platform using Big Interview, and you can send your interview via email to as many people as you like and get some quality feedback. And to this day, when it comes to networking, I have not met one professional that did not like bragging or discussing their professional endeavors of what they've done for a career. And so don't be ashamed or scared to reach out to people. LinkedIn is an awesome resource for you to use, as well as everyone on this call is open to speaking with you in the future. Moving into the next question.
Yeah,
Yes.
and Tony, I was going to just expand on that a little bit. that is exactly how I got my job here at First Merit. And the one thing that I would say to also try to do is you would be amazed at how many influential people get involved in our local community here in Flint that are very, very successful business owners. We work with a lot of them at the bank. But I got my job because I went to my son's elementary school for a career day. And I was talking to someone who I knew, I knew who they were. I didn't know them personally. We were talking, ended up my dad was a teacher. He had my dad as a teacher in school. He connected with me on LinkedIn, and literally about a year later, he reached out and asked me to talk to him about a job opening that they had. So it just purely going to a career day to talk about what I did at my prior job got me a step up into where I was at too. So get involved in the community as well too. That would be another thing.
Hey, thank you for sharing that. I always bring up, airport, grocery stores, random gas station, it's no telling who you would be meeting sitting in the room next to you or in front of you at the cashier's line. And a simple smile, a conversation can take you to the next step in your career as long as you stay connected. So can you express how you've leveraged your connections with professors or staff at the university to advance within your career? Did you utilize them to provide letters of recommendation or suggest that you become part of other organizations out there?
I guess I can take this one. And say I don't know that I've really leveraged any of those contacts, but it was actually having Professor Lawrence and his impact on my career that made me think that my own son should be going into human relations. So he actually next semester, well, in the fall, will be transferring to UM-Flint, and he's going into the HR program. So, I mean, there's a ton of people here at Plante Moran Flint that came from U of M-Flint, and I tend to, I like my relationships with all of my professors and all of the students that I went to school with. Some of them are working here with me, but I mean, the nice thing about school is that you learn a lot of things at school, and you learn how to learn, and it's those ways of like learning how to develop these careers. And while I haven't had, a day-to-day thing where I've needed to leverage those relationships, I know that there are a lot of people out there that do take advantage of that part.
I'll hop in next because unfortunately I don't have a ton to add here. Of course, I've been out of getting my master's for a long time, and I was kind of already in the industry when I got my master's degree, so I didn't really necessarily have to leverage those connections. But the one thing I do want to point out is I sit on the School of Management Advisory Board, and as part of that, we get a chance to meet students, and always love doing that. Also, for I think about 3 years in a row, I was part of the case competition, which I don't think we've had for a while now, but definitely take advantage of anything that the school has to offer that allows you to get in front of people within the community. I know that's kind of been rough because of COVID, but I mean, hopefully that stuff will start back up again. So really, any way that allows you to get in front of people within the business community, take advantage of that. I can tell you, I've really enjoyed my time with the students. As you get to know them, use us as a resource for what we do, to ask questions, and just a chance to interact.
Yeah, I'm pretty much in the same boat. I've got my degree, 20 years ago, and I didn't really leverage the professors, but I definitely think if you can, definitely do that. I'm also on that School of Management Advisory Board with Jim, but I'm currently the outgoing president as of July 1, but I'm the president of the U of M Club of Greater Flint. So anybody who graduates from U of M Flint here, or U of M in general, and is in the Greater Flint area, look up our club. It's your first year after graduation, you get a free year. There is an annual dues. It's not expensive. But there's a lot of resources and a lot of tools that we're doing and really being forced to do now virtually that we never really did before. And it's really going to cause our club to grow and evolve. And, we mentioned LinkedIn. I know Amanda said, get one by the end of the day if you don't have one. One of the things that we're going to be doing here soon is to do we're going to hire someone to do a LinkedIn kind of coaching session to help set up a LinkedIn or modify your LinkedIn to get optimal viewing on that. So take advantage of those two resources to leverage any contacts that might be there for you.
Thank you for sharing. If you need help with that LinkedIn promotional, let me know. I'll assist with that as well. I've been doing a lot of talking as far as questions concerned. Students out there, does anyone have any questions? You can write it in the chat or feel free to unmute yourself and ask a specific question to an individual and or to the panel. Okay, well, I'll go with another question, but if you think of anything, please write it in the chat box. Can you all express how do you manage work-life balance in times of COVID and before?
Yeah, that's oh, go ahead, Jim.
Thanks. Yeah, with COVID, it's really blurred the lines of the work, personal life, business. I don't know if you can tell, I'm working from my basement right now, and really have functionally been working from my basement since, well, really over a year now. So a lot of people ask, hey, Jim, isn't it great working from home? And I'm like, yeah, sometimes it is, but it also means that at 8 o'clock at night, I might still be working because work is right here. So, and then really with the advent of everything's on your cell phone, work emails are on your cell phone, really it's very much so blurred the lines. So, which can be a bad thing, but it can also be a good thing if, you need to take off for the afternoon and you're caught up with work. Well, maybe you can go ahead and do that and it's not such a problem. So really the age of the, 8 to 5 o'clock, time frame, I punch in, I punch back out again, that's really gone now. And you have to be flexible with that. Sometimes it works out good, and sometimes it not so good because you get a phone call at 7, 8 o'clock at night or at 6 o'clock in the morning, whatever it happens to be. So you just have to kind of try to strike that balance yourself. But at the end of the day, you really just have to kind of get the job done.
No, and I agree completely with Jim. I've had jobs in the past where I was completely work from home. That was prior to kids, but I've got a freshman in high school, a 5th grader, and a 3rd grader. And I've pretty much been working at home since about March 23rd. And I'll tell you, when school shut down last year, that work-life balance was really difficult. Trying to get a 2nd grader at the time onto a computer to scroll through a kind of a portrait view of probably 3 pages of different links that he had to click on to get schoolwork done. Luckily, my wife also worked from home at that time, but now she's got a different job now to where she's in an office. But it's tough, but this virtual world now is definitely convenient, because now instead of driving maybe 2 hours to a meeting and having a meeting for an hour and a half and then driving another 2 hours back home, well, we're looking at 5.5, 6 hours of the day that's pretty much gone. So now I can feel I can be a little bit more efficient at sometimes with some meetings and use of my time, which then allows me to, right now, run my freshman up to the high school to do football weightlifting and then pick him up and then run him back up there at 5 o'clock to do lacrosse practice. take my youngest son to, baseball and soccer practice. So you do get some flexibility there, and it is it creates a little bit more efficiency, I think, sometimes with your use of time in this virtual meeting world.
I will be very honest. Because of the CARES Act and all of the different legislation that happened this year, every time you guys got a stimulus check, I got more work. and I don't have the kindest things to say about Congress sometimes, because they had really great intentions on all of these things, but it just, for the accounting world, it meant that we've had nonstop changes of things that we've had to constantly update. I mean, even a couple of weeks ago, they were making changes, and then they put out, they extended the deadline for tax day this year. It's now May 17th instead of April 15th. My work-life balance this year completely evaporated. There wasn't really a balance. I worked in my bedroom. There wasn't a whole lot of shift in between what I was doing at work and what I was doing at home, because it was all the same thing. But the good thing is that we have come out of this with some really amazing things. Clients that I've never seen before in my life, because I work on hospitals and universities for the most part. That's the kind of tax I do. And I have hospitals all over the US. I have universities that I work on that are all over the United States. So there were people that I've never met before in my life. This year, I get to have daily meetings with some of these people, where before I probably wouldn't even talk to them on the phone. Now I'm seeing them face to face on a regular basis. And it's totally shifted how I do things. So while I might not have had a great work-life balance this year, I also see the light at the end of the tunnel, which is that down the line, I'm also not going to have to travel as much as I used to in the past. I'll get to be able to work from home when I need to. I'll be able to have more of these virtual meetings when things do go back to normal. So even though it's been a rough year for all the tax legislation, I have a lot of great things that I've taken away from this. And I've also learned that there are certain things that I need to do as a person to keep my own life balance in check. And that meant sometimes this year I would drive up to a cottage that my family has up north, and I would work up there for a week, just so that, I mean, even if it was in February and it's terrible weather up there, it's still getting myself out of that norm and putting myself in a place where I can focus and have a different kind of work experience. And I mean, gosh, I'm answering questions from universities right now because of the work adjustments that everybody's had. One of the questions I'm getting on a regular basis is, well, one of my employees decided to move to Florida and they're just living there until COVID ends. So how do we handle the tax implications of that? I'm like, well, it's fine because Florida doesn't have an income tax, but don't let them move to Europe because that causes us all kinds of problems. So I think everybody has to figure out their own line in the sand. And mine is that, I put my head down and I got through this year. And at the end of the year, we're going to St. Thomas to celebrate the end of, this rough year of not really having a very good work-life balance. And so you just find those things that make it worthwhile. If there's something about your job that makes it a little bit harder from January to April, then you find something in June and July to make it worthwhile and make it, something that you can work towards, if that makes sense.
Yes, thank you. Got a grad school question, pretty long question. I'm going to read it off. So student says, I'm about to graduate in April with my BBA, considering getting my MBA from UM-Flint as well, because they're offering a $5,000 alumni scholarship. How did you decide it was the right time to get your graduate degree? Do you have any advice about going from undergraduate coursework to graduate classes? How were the courses different or classes structured compared to undergrad?
I think that depends on what you're going into, number one, because if it's just the masters of business, you got to look at out there and say, is this going to get me farther than if I just go get, if I just stop at my BBA. Because there are some degrees out there or some industries that you can work in where the MBA will get you in, whereas the BBA will not. And you really have to look at what are the priorities of that, industry. For me, getting the master's in accounting meant that I could get my 150 credits. And it was just a natural transition. And the way that they kind of lined it up, it would go along with the CPA exam. And that was beneficial to me. But for some people, the MBA isn't quite as beneficial depending on what you're going into. And that's what you really need to look at. Go out on the LinkedIn, look at the people that have the job that you want. Do they have an MBA or do they have a BBA? And I think that that is usually a pretty good indicator of what you're going to need as far as like classes go.
I can go ahead and go next. I'm going to give a bit of a mixed answer here. It was 10 years before my undergraduate and then my master's degree. That didn't work out real well. It was very difficult to go back to school after being out for 10 years. Fortunately for me, I didn't have a family at the time. I can't even imagine going to get that while you've got a family and so much more going on. I did have a full-time job when I got my master's, so most of my classes I had to take in person at UM-Flint. That made for very long days, I can tell you, after working for 8 hours a day, having about an hour or two break and then heading into class. But again, that was really something that was almost necessary for the position that I was in and that I wanted to continue to evolve my career. I got it done in about 2.5 years. So that was great. And I'm glad I did it. And really kind of what it worked out well for me because my employer at the time picked up a large portion of the tab for my master's degree. And that was really kind of what pushed me over the edge. I was working in downtown Flint at the time. So it kind of all worked out whereby, I was already in downtown Flint as it was anyway, and then just went ahead and transitioned right across the street, so to speak, over to UM-Flint. So for the credit analyst position, I don't know that a master's degree is necessary for that. Definitely want to do a little bit more research on that, but that might be something you might want to work towards. I think maybe employers now might not be so willing to pay for that as well too. So might be some early on questions you might want to ask a possible employer is what how they handle that, and if they do, certainly take advantage of it.
Next question in the chat. Do you think that everything will shift back to a more in-person workplace, or with everything changing how it has to do you think we will stay mostly online?
Yeah, I'll start off from at least our perspective at Huntington, and they've been very, very open and flexible with all of the employees. We have probably 17,000 employees through our 5-state footprint. And we took a survey about 6 to 8 weeks ago, and it was, what's your comfort level? Do you want to come back 25% of the time? Do you want to come back 50% of the time? Do you want to come back 100% of the time when we get past this? And it was all over the board, but I think that it's going to be a mix in my opinion. What kind of continued social distancing is going to have to be done? Does that have an impact on the number of employees that can actually be in person, or the amount of square footage that a company might have or might need to get to accommodate that stuff? So I don't know. I think there might be some kind of a blend of it, and just my own opinion here.
We'll be going back in person. The nice thing about, my work, I've always been able to do it remotely. It's just one of those things. But the culture at my firm is that we work as a team, and not being in person has been difficult because now we have to come up with virtual workrooms for everybody to work virtually in. And while that's helpful, it's not the same as being in person. And a lot of my clients want the auditors to come out in person and to see them, to be able to hand them a stack of papers and have them go through it, because working virtually has made a lot of things a lot more difficult. So even for me, it's kind of made it easier because I can virtually do almost anything. There are definitely huge parts of my firm that are like, we're going back in person the second that we're allowed to. So, and I think that when I talk to staff across the board, the urge is that most people want to be back in person. So as far as I know, we won't be closing any of our offices. Everyone will eventually go back in person. We have changed a little bit of how we're doing things. Like my office, I'm allowed to come in right now because I have a business case, and in Michigan, you're not allowed to work in an office unless you have like a business case because of the MIOSHA rules. But for the most part, I'm only allowed in the office 2 days every other week when my husband is home and I can't get privacy. But they're talking about hopefully when things, when the MIOSHA rules that have been extended, I think it's through 4/15, when those expire, hopefully they stay expired and they don't renew them. And at that point, we'd probably come back 20% and slowly merge back into the office and have people back in person. Although we've now done 3 classes of interns and new starts who are 100% virtual and had to learn everything remotely. And I know that that's been a big task for us, is trying to figure out that part of it and figure out how to support staff and make them want to come work with us when learning remotely can be very difficult. So it's just something that we're always like thinking about.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with both the panelists. Really, who knows where this is going to end up. Just be prepared for either one and be able to excel in either one. As a commercial lender, I've kind of always been on my own and not necessarily have to be in the office all the time. So, but really over the last year, it's really never going into the office. I don't know that that's going to change. I really don't expect I'll probably have an office, or I will have an office, but how often I'm there, probably very little. I would check with each financial institution if you decide you want to get into banking. I know the institution I'm at right now is expecting the credit analyst position to be an in-person position, once that's available. So, just be prepared for that. But you also have to be prepared if things change or don't change, where we can't go back to work, that you'd be able to work remotely, have a good internet connection, and so forth. So really just be able to adapt to either one, because at this point, we really don't know where this pandemic is going to take us.
Thank you for those questions, students. We're about 4 minutes out, and we're going to close this thing out. But before we close, I would like our panelists to think about when you were a senior approaching graduation. With the knowledge you have now, what do you wish someone would have tapped you on the shoulder and said to you to prepare for the future?
Here's my soapbox again. Intern, you haven't already, sign up for one. And if you feel like it's too late and you haven't been able to get an intern position, you can still get them after graduation. You can still get those internships, and you can apply for them now. And if it really is too late and you're looking for some kind of real world experience, get out there and volunteer. Find some kind of an organization. I am on the board of Whaley's, so there's always volunteer opportunities over there for, they run a foster care agency. And so we've always got stuff going on. And the people that are involved with my organization tend to be very much involved with the community. So you can always develop those relationships when you volunteer. And if it isn't, that, find, gosh, there's Hurley Foundation, there's all the different MOP foundations. There's a million volunteer opportunities out there. Plus, a lot of those not-for-profits need volunteers to help them with the finances. So a lot of them have free internships or even paid internships. Looking to volunteer for one of the not-for-profit organizations is a really good way to get some kind of experience on your resume without necessarily having to do a full internship. But If you haven't graduated yet and you haven't done an internship, go find one. It is very, very important, and it will help you go 10 times farther than if you don't try to intern.
I'll go ahead and add something. And unfortunately, I don't have a lot to add here. I was fortunate when I got my undergraduate degree. I had a family business. So I'm so thankful that I got my degree, because had I not, I would have been in real trouble. I decided to not stay in that industry. And frankly, my degree in business allowed me to transition over into banking. So I'm so thankful I did that. It was never even a question for me to go ahead and get that. And by having that degree, it allowed me to pivot into a completely different industry and ended up working very well. So again, I think I said in my previous comments, be ready to adapt, even though you think you might want to go into one industry. Always be thinking about something, along lines in case it doesn't work out, because that's exactly what happened with me. It didn't work out. And thankfully I had the college degree to allow me to make that transition.
Yeah, I would agree with both Jim and Amanda. And I would say, as Amanda had said, and just kind of reiterate, find people on LinkedIn that do what you want to do, connect with them. And after connecting with them, don't just say, hey, I'd like to connect, make a personal message there. Hey, I'm looking to get into this industry. I'd love to connect and, talk to you about what you did to become successful, or what steps I can do to kind of advance into this, into that industry. So, reach out to people, network, internship, and utilize all those contacts that you possibly can.
Well, we are at our 1:30 mark exactly, and we're going to go ahead and close this out. I would like to say thank you to our panelists. Thank you to our students that is participating in this alumni panel today. I believe the information is very helpful and useful. I would encourage students to please take down the names of our panelists, create that LinkedIn account if you don't have one. If you do have one, go ahead and add them as friends, add myself and other students on this call as well, because it's not about what you know, it's about who you know, and there's no telling what the person sitting next to you on a Zoom meeting or in the classroom can assist you with in the future. So thank you all for participating in our alumni panel. I hope that you have a wonderful rest of your week and enjoy the sunshine. I heard it's 80 degrees or something like that. Have a good one, everyone.
Thank you. Bye now.
Bye.